Choppers flying overhead.
Now when we actually go home.
Oh, so many socialists in here. Unbelievable.
$1 trillion ball of debt. Everybody has a hard to make this work. It's going to have to be systemic.
This demonstration, we'll do plenty more.
Oh, that's a great rally.
Yes, there are 2 water stations. We're about to get
Barack Obama and Riley Manning. 2 persons who could not be more unlike. One is African American, and he's in his gender identity, married, the father of 2 daughters, while Bradley Manning is white and single and gay. One is President of the United States.
Almost gay too.
Peace Prize. Honored and feted in Hollywood. While Bradley Manning is a 24-year-old Army private who today is still largely in this country faceless and voiceless and languishes in jail with 22 counts of treason and espionage brought against him. Obama is a man who can authorize torture and assassination anywhere in the world and has. While Bradley Manning has been a victim of that torture. Obama, a constitutional law professor, declared Bradley guilty before his trial even began, and now unlawfully denies public access to trial evidence. Barack Obama appeals to state secrecy and national security to disguise and conceal his war-making agenda, while Bradley Manning has become a beacon worldwide, a symbol, believe it or not, for the people's right to know what their governments do in their name. The contrast between these 2 men is stark, it's undeniable, and it couldn't be sharper. So the question is, which one, Obama or Bradley Manning, is the American hero? The question is, whose side are you on? That's the question. Whose side are you on? You must make a choice. You cannot be for both.
Okay, next we have Ann Wright, retired Colonel of the U.S. Army. Colonel Ann Wright is a retired Army Reserve Colonel and a 29-year veteran of the Army and Army Reserves. She resigned from the Department of State on March 19, 2003 in opposition to the Iraq War. She is the co-author of Dissent, Voices of Conscience.
Well, I was part of the system. I was an Army colonel. I was a U.S. diplomat. I helped reopen the U.S. Embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan in 2001 while you all were out there protesting the U.S. going into Afghanistan as you went and going into Iraq. We've got people here that are right here from Pakistan where the drones are killing people in Pakistan, where they're killing people in Afghanistan and Somalia and Ethiopia. I just came from a conference where Madeleine Albright, Secretary of State, 500,000 kids that died in Iraq. Iraq, and now she's saying, I just made a little slip of the tongue when I started talking about those. Here she's saying that war is good for women in Afghanistan, and I say, war and NATO are no good. No good, NATO! And I want to introduce Cece. If you think we got war overseas, we got war right here on evictions. Here's Cece.
Hey everybody, Cece here from Anti-Eviction Campaign, and we're here to say housing is a human right. Fight, fight, fight. Repeat after me. Housing is a human right. Fight, fight, fight. Moratorium now. Moratorium now. We've gone to dark. We want Lisa Madigan to step to the plate and bring those settlement agreements and stop the evictions.
I'm glad to see the turnout.
Oh, tell me about it. I am like totally amazed.
Thank you.
Next we have Mental World Organization and Mental World Leader that you all know. Regina Benjamin, founder of Philippines. She's recently come out with a new book on drones. Which tells you more information about robotic wars. Regina Benjamin.
So the leaders of the NATO summit are meeting now, and one of the justifications they have for the war in Afghanistan is that they are helping women. So we are here to tell the leaders in the summit what women really want. Clean air, clean water, clean energy, clean elections, clean
Yeah, right.
Okay, next we have Michelle Morales from the National Boricua Human Rights Network. Michelle is coordinator of the National Boricua Human Rights Network for the last 10 years. Also works as the Associate Director of the Alternative Schools Network and sits on the board of Dr. Pedro Albuzo Campos Puerto Rican High School.
Hey everybody, I'm here representing the community of Humboldt Park here in Chicago. And the Puerto Rican community at large. Like the Palestinians and the Filipinos that spoke before me, we too are fighting to get the U.S. out of Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has been a colony of the United States since 1898. It has been owned since 1898. But the Puerto Rican people have never been owned. Since 1898, we have had thousands of Puerto Ricans in prison in U.S. federal prisons for fighting for Puerto Rico's freedom. There is still one more left in prison. Next Tuesday, Oscar Lopez Rivera will commemorate his 31st year in U.S. federal prison for believing in the freedom for Puerto Rico and fighting for Puerto Rican rights. He is not a terrorist. He is an activist, and we want him home. Because of the repression that Oscar faces in prison, we are never able to get a message from him recorded. But I have one written that I'm going to read to you. Greetings with much love and respect to all of you who dare to protest and struggle against the G8 and NATO. They are the forces that represent hatred, fear, corruption, havoc, wars, exploitation, and oppression. What they have done and continue to do in countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, Palestine, Palestine and Egypt clearly represent what they are doing is capable of doing in order to perpetuate their control and hegemony. You, on the other hand, represent love, hope, compassion, and courage. As long as you don't allow them to stop, you can stop them. A better and more just world is possible. Let's dare to struggle to make it a reality. Dare to struggle and dare to win. En resistencia lucha, Oscar Lopez Rivera. Let's get him out. Obama needs to listen. Get Oscar out of prison. Obama needs to listen. Get Oscar out of prison. Que viva Puerto Rico libre.
Okay, so in the last couple of weeks, the Greek left have shaken up politics in that country by rejecting austerity budgets and the idea that the poor have to pay for the rich gambling with all of our futures. The coalition, Syriza, the left coalition, which has won in the elections, has actually sent the protest today a brief statement that I'm going to read. Dear brothers and sisters of the anti-war movement, millions of people are familiar with NATO's records of crimes over the last years in the Balkans, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya, to just name a few. At summits like the one here in Chicago, they are planning the creation of a new kind of NATO, even more ruthless, aggressive, and dangerous. The struggle against NATO, against imperialist wars, against occupations and dictatorships, in defense of the Arab Revolution, in solidarity with Palestine, in defense of the right of people to self-determination is a global one. In these times of severe economic crises, their war machine is more dangerous than ever. For example, threatening war on Iran to protect their profits. And in such times of austerity, it becomes even more important to organize and fight for our needs and not more fuel for the war machine. But you, our friends in the U.S., are the ones who are struggling in the belly of the beast. It is a hard struggle, but it is a struggle worth fighting. The anti-war movement in the U.S. is the one that can stop the leading force of the war machine. We salute your mobilization against the NATO summit, and we send you our solidarity from Greece. Antonis Devanalis.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Donna Carter, is a spokeswoman for the mental health movement and a fearless leader in the struggle for the human rights and health care. She is an organizer of the Southside Together organization for Power, STOP, and was one of the original Woodlawn 23 jailed for barricading themselves inside the Woodlawn Mental Health Clinic. And
thank you. Healthcare and mental health care is under attack. In Chicago, we have people coming home, more than 30,000 military from the National Guard that have no insurance, that have no military health care, and they are coming home beaten and broken. There will be no one to take care of them. They will die or go to prison. Right now, we are fighting to keep the few 12 public health clinics open. We have 16 people that are hospitalized and 2 deaths since April 9th. The richest country in the world is murdering people and telling them, too bad, because you don't have money. What we want all of you to do is have your damn moment. Contact Obama and tell him that he needs to speak to Rahm Emanuel, because he sent Rahm Emanuel here to destroy health care for the poor. This is important to NATO because every day a soldier somewhere is told to kill. And once they've committed that atrocity, they are damaged for life. When they come back home, we need to make sure there's somewhere for our soldiers to go. Contact Rahm Emanuel and contact the president-elect and tell Republic. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Luis Gutierrez Esparza from No to War, No to NATO. He is the president of the Latin American Circle of International Studies. Get up for Luis.
Good afternoon, people of Chicago, people of the United States, people of the world. I am very happy to be here with you because not only you are in the front line of the peace movement in the United States, but because this is a city with a great Mexican community. This is one of the most important Mexican cities in the world. We are here to offer you our solidarity, and we ask for yours. The 3,000-kilometer border between Mexico and the United States is also the border between NATO and Latin America. That's why NATO is also our problem. Not only because of that, because also according to the Washington Treaty, the foundational chart of NATO, all the military resources of one of its members is and can be used by the others. Being the United States the main power, military power and economic power behind NATO's machine, the almost 50 military bases that the United States has in Latin American countries are also NATO bases. And so the bases of the United Kingdom in the Malvinas and in the southern tip of our continent. We are joining you in the fight against NATO, this murderous war machine. We want NATO disbanded, dismantled, and forgotten in the past. We must globalize peace as they are globalizing war. We shall overcome. Venceremos.
Luis comes to us from Mexico. He's a leader of the anti-war movement in Latin America. Our next speaker is Soraya. She is a founding member of Afghans for Peace, an alliance of Afghans from various backgrounds with a united vision for democratic, all-inclusive, just, and peaceful Afghanistan. She comes to us from Toronto.
Unfortunately, Malala Jaya, known as the bravest woman in Afghanistan, she could not be here today, so instead I will be reading her statement in solidarity as an Afghan woman also involved in the peace-led movement. This is her message to Chicago. I wish to convey my heartfelt greetings to this huge and beautiful anti-war gathering. You are all struggling against the powerful forces that my grieving Afghanistan is severely suffering under, be they the US, the warlords, the so-called jihadis, or the Stone Age Taliban. I want to deeply apologize for not having the honor to be amongst you all today because of my ill health. Please know this, dear friends, your voice against war and the warmongering US government and its NATO allies is deeply inspiring to the freedom-loving people of Afghanistan and to people around the world. This ongoing movement, which today you represent, can be the barrier to these warmongers and exploiters of the world who want to implement their demonic aims. Here in Afghanistan, people are thirsty for independence, democracy, and social justice. Your struggle against wars waged by your own government is vital to the victory of freedom-loving Afghans and to people around the world too in their struggle for freedom and emancipation. The US NATO war in Afghanistan is killing many innocent people. All this bloodshed just for a permanent military presence, for geostrategic reasons. NATO is planning here in Chicago for a new era of war. If they are able to stay in Afghanistan, they will launch more wars in our region and in Africa and beyond. Especially in a time of economic crisis, NATO's war endangers the whole world. NATO's bombs will never deliver democracy and justice to Afghanistan or to any other country. As you raise your voices today in protest, you are being heard all across Afghanistan and around the world. I'm not with you physically today, but in spirit and in heart, I am there with you. rescue, together with millions of Afghans who want this war to end. I have no doubt that we will see the day when this voice of the 99% pulls these global bullies down and punishes them for their crimes. Down with war and down with NATO. Long live international solidarity.
Okay, next we have Rick Rozoff from Stop NATO. He's an internationally recognized researcher on NATO and author of the Stop NATO website.
Greetings, everyone. Thanks for your determination to come out in this weather, for your courage to be here, and for the insight to recognize that the greatest threat to world peace at this moment is the so-called North Atlantic Treaty Organization. A young woman just stepped away. I hope she can hear me. She has a lime green sign that says NATO equals World War III. Photographs of that woman and the sign were all over the World Wide Net this morning, from local Chicago media to the Voice of Russia, amongst other places. I want to address something a little more solemn, though. To the thousands of Yugoslav, Afghan, Pakistani, Libyan, and as of 13 years ago this month, Chinese civilians who were killed by NATO bombs and missiles. To those who continue to be killed by NATO cluster bomb fragments and depleted uranium weaponry. For the tens of thousands who have been injured and maimed by life. To the hundreds of thousands who have spent weeks, sometimes months at end in bomb shelters. To the millions who have lived in fear of attacks by NATO helicopter gunships, warplanes, and cruise missiles, you are not forgotten. You will never be forgotten. And the war criminals who are responsible for your suffering will be brought to justice. The NATO summiteers who have been eating at the five-star restaurants and getting their limousine-driven tours of the city will announce in their summit declaration tomorrow 3 major issues. One of them is applauding the carnage in Afghanistan, which has lasted for over 10.5 years, epitomized by the brutal murder of 17 Afghan women and children in Kandahar province in March. You want an image of what NATO stands for? That's it.
Crime against humanity!
They are also going to celebrate...
Conspirators!
One last point, please. They are going to announce the so-called interim capacity for NATO's missile shield, so-called. That is an interceptor missile system, which is going to be a global, potentially first strike missile system. It's going to be the realization of Ronald Reagan's Star Wars once they move it into space. Not only is NATO a threat to this planet, it's a threat even beyond this planet. It needs to be abolished.
We will prevail! People will prevail!
We're getting along on the list. Meredith Abbey is a founding member of the Anti-War Committee in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Meredith's home was raided by the FBI in September 2010, and she is one of the 24 anti-war and international solidarity activists facing political repression for their activism. Here's Meredith.
As a token Minnesotan speaking from the stage today, I'd like to give a shout out to all the people from out of state. Let's give it up for ourselves. The FBI came after many of us in the Minneapolis anti-war movement because we were the main organizers of the last big anti-war protest in this country, the RNC in 2008. They raided my home and have tried to criminalize solidarity to Palestine and Colombia. But they haven't silenced us. They haven't silenced Carlos Montes, and they haven't silenced any of you. Instead, they've made it all too clear how important our work is. And here we all are. We remain committed to opposing the wars of US and NATO and to supporting the struggles of oppressed people across the world. We must be here so we can march on the NATO summit. The people of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Libya, Syria, and Iran should not be in the crosshairs of NATO. NATO should not get to decide whether or not the people of the world live or die under occupation. We must be here. This is an undemocratic and secretive meeting. And the only way we get a voice is by being in the streets. We have to raise our voices at McCormick Place so they will hear our opposition to war and greed. We, the 99%, must be here to stand with our sisters and brothers from across the U.S. and the world to say that we oppose NATO's imperialist wars for the 1%. From Afghanistan to the Middle East, we demand justice. We demand peace. From Afghanistan to the Middle East, we demand justice. We demand peace. Thank you. It's an honor to march with you.
Afghanistan.
Everybody, I just want to talk a little bit about reconciliation and nonviolence today. I spent almost 4 years of my life practicing violence against the people of Afghanistan. And I know better than anybody what it means to be a purveyor of violence. And as you drive around the city today, you can see police from 6 different states. You can see the Secret Service, the FBI, the NSA. Wave if you're one of them. I see a bunch of you out there right now. They have a lot of guns, and they know how to use them. They know how to use violence. And if we want to create a different world, we're going to have to live that different world today. It's not going to be tomorrow. It's not some revolution that we, kick down the Capitol steps and take it with guns and we have a new world. It's something we start living different and we wake up the other side of the revolution. And I'm here with Iraq Veterans Against the War and Afghans for Peace to talk about reconciliation, because if we don't come together as a world, and that, I know this is going to be frustrating to hear, but that also includes the police. That also includes the power structure. At some point, we're going to have to find a way to reintegrate as a culture and a community and come together. There's a lot of crimes that need to be answered before we get to that point. But I'm going to ask all of you today to stand with Iraq Veterans Against the War and Afghans for Peace as we lead this march to return our medals to NATO. I need your help, because they're going to do every single thing that they can to discredit us. They're going to call us traitors. They're going to say that we aren't real veterans. They're going to say that we don't speak for the American service member. And that's lies. You ask any American service member, they know how poorly they've been treated. They know how they were lied to. And we're going to speak to that today. We're going to demonstrate to the world that there is different voices. So I ask you all to join with us in nonviolence, because they only have one answer. They only have one tactic, and that is violence. And they're going to use that first, last, and always. We have to be for something better. I know how angry you are. I'm angry too. But stand with us today and let's start building a different world we can all live in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Afghan and Iraq vets will be leading us in a few minutes to march on NATO. Be there and join us. We know that what we have done has hurt NATO and the G8. That's why they divided the two. They wanted to try to divide us, but we stand united. And not only in this country, not only during an election period when they said we couldn't mobilize, but we are united with people all over the world. There are 6 demonstrations happening in Europe this week in solidarity, in London, in Ireland, and in other places. There are demonstrations in 3 cities in India, in Bangladesh, and in Pakistan happening. And there's a demonstration today in Tehran, Iran. They are hoping that we can build a strong enough movement to stay the hand of our government and NATO so they will not be attacked. To do this requires some money. They have all the money in the world because they take our tax dollars. We only have the money that you can give. There are people throughout the crowd and will be along the march with buckets that say Cangate on the side, white buckets. Please put money in there so we can pay for this and the next one we have to do until we defeat NATO and it no longer exists in this world and this planet can live and breathe once again. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Joe, and United National Anti-War Committee. My name is Andy Fair. I'm very proud to be one of the organizers of today's march. First, a few very important health and safety remarks. Please, if you have not gotten yourself some water, get it now. There is free water over by the porta potties to my right. There's free water over on my left here. Make sure you are well hydrated before you go on this march against NATO. It's very important, especially those of my friends in black. We have said, and we will reiterate, that we are starting our march today with the Iraq Veterans Against the War because they, of any Americans, have suffered the most thanks to these wrongful wars. And I would ask to everyone here in the audience to respect them leading our march because they have contributed the most to these wrong wars. They've been totally screwed. And our Iraq veterans are very, very conscious of the fact that there are people more than themselves who have been harmed by these wars, and that's, of course, the peoples of Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, and every other country this president and his predecessor has invaded. And with us today, I'm very proud to say, is Saeed Khan, who is a leading member of our own Chicago Pakistani American community. Saeed, tell the audience why the people of Pakistan oppose the drone attacks on your country.
Thank you very much. I was in Pakistan. I just came last Thursday. I bring the best wishes and support from the people of Pakistan.
That's a lie. We go on.
My friends, the time is short. We have to go. I'll briefly tell that there are 2-3 things I have to tell about the occupation of Afghanistan. The people of Pakistan want that the occupation should end right away and all forces shall be withdrawn. Number 2, he mentioned about the drone attacks. There are drone attacks every time and innocent people are being killed every day. More than 300 drone attacks so far have been done and taken place, and more than 3,000 innocent people have been killed, children, women, and older people, and sometimes they attack on funeral, sometimes in a wedding, sometimes when the people march to Walker, they attack and then they kill innocent people. The other issue is the NATO supply. I hope you may know that the NATO supply is to Pakistan, to my city Peshawar, and no is under consideration. The people of Pakistan do not want the NATO supply because it will have repercussion and more so-called terrorism will come to the country. So the terrorism should not be done. So since the time is running out, I won't say more, but 3 things: occupation in Afghanistan shall finish, should end, and okay. At the same time, NATO supply should not start, and the most important, which I mentioned about the drone attacks, is killing innocent people, shall be stopped. Thank you very much.
Okay, and amongst the people who have paid a price for U.S. militarism, of course, our veterans. Leah Bolger of Vets for Peace.
Veterans for Peace believes that the most powerful anti-war voices are those of veterans who have seen firsthand the irreparable damage of war. The first Supreme Commander of NATO, 5-star General Dwight D. Eisenhower, said, "I hate war as only a soldier who has lived it can, as only one who has seen its brutality, its futility, its stupidity." Well, Veterans for Peace agrees completely with Eisenhower. We also think the war is stupid and futile, and that's why we're here today.
Vets for Peace have come to Chicago from all over the country to speak have come from all over the country to raise our voices in opposition to war, militarism, and violence, to speak as personal witnesses to its worthlessness. We want the world to know that the American people do not support our government in its illegal, immoral wars of aggression. We are outraged that our tax dollars are being used to kill innocent people, and we are deeply saddened to know that by waging wars of aggression, we have created enemies where there once were none. I call on the global community to stop remaining silent.